if you listen closely, you can hear it. Not in the way people usually mean that. Not the dramatic silence after a breakup. Not the awkward quiet after a bad date. This is a different kind of silence. The kind that shows up when something big changes, but nobody announces it. It's the silence of unopened dating apps. The silence of messages never sent. The silence of men who used to chase, explain, negotiate and prove, and who now simply don't. Meanwhile, the internet keeps shouting. Videos asking why commitment feels rare. Threads diagnosing the dating crisis. Hot takes arguing about who ruined romance and when. Entire podcasts built around the idea that someone has to be the villain. But away from all that noise, something else is happening. A growing number of men are quietly building lives that don't revolve around being chosen. They're not always angry. They're not always bitter. They're not hiding in caves or giving up on humanity. Many of them are just calm, focused, busy with things that don't require permission or emotional negotiation. And that calm is unsettling because it challenges one of the oldest assumptions in modern dating culture, that men will always come back, that if you wait long enough, loneliness will force them to return, that men might pretend they want peace, but deep down they'll trade anything for companionship. Except now, more and more men are discovering something unexpected. Solitude isn't automatically misery. Sometimes it's relief. So what changed? Why does independence feel more appealing than the relationship system that was supposed to be the goal? And why are so many people confused by men who are no longer easily pulled by the usual pressure points? Let's talk about the quiet shift nobody saw coming. For a long time, there was an unspoken storyline that shaped how people viewed men and relationships. It went something like this. Men act tough. Men act independent. Men pretend they don't need anyone, but give it time, if they're alone long enough, they'll crack. The theory was that solitude would eventually do the work, that the absence of affection, sex, partnership and social approval would wear a man down until he returned to dating, to commitment, to chasing. And to be fair, that used to happen, often. Because for many men, loneliness wasn't just emotional, it was practical. In older generations, relationships weren't only about love, they were also about structure, social status, family expectations, a socially approved life path. Being alone could make you look suspicious, immature, or incomplete. So the culture trained everyone, men and women, to believe male independence was temporary, like a phase. But now, something is different. Men are increasingly learning how to build structure without a partner, how to meet their own needs, how to create a stable life without constantly negotiating it. They're building routines. They're learning emotional regulation in a way that doesn't depend on a relationship as the main outlet. They're investing in friendships, gym communities, online communities, hobbies, side businesses, trades, skills. And once a man experiences a life that feels stable, quiet, and fully his, the old storyline loses power. Because the fear that used to push him back, the fear of being alone, doesn't feel as scary when being alone feels peaceful. Let's describe something that rarely gets named clearly. Not big toxic abuse situations, not the obvious disasters, not cheating scandals and screaming fights. Something smaller, more common, more invisible. The drip, drip, drip of constant correction. Not one huge moment, but 10 small ones a day. The tone you used, the way you cleaned something, the way you relaxed, the way you didn't relax correctly, the timing of your hobbies, the amount of time you spent on work, the amount of time you didn't spend on work, the look on your face when you were tired, the fact you were tired in the first place. It's not always cruel. Sometimes it's wrapped in, I'm just being honest, or I'm trying to help you improve, or why are you taking it personally? But over time, it creates a specific kind of mental load. You stop living and start performing. You start scanning every choice for possible conflict. You manage your mood, your words, your facial expressions, like you're always one mistake away from an argument. And the strange part is, from the outside, everything can look normal. Two people, a home, a routine, maybe even laughter sometimes. But inside the man's mind, life becomes a constant low-level state of self-monitoring. Eventually, many men hit a realization that feels simple but changes everything. Peace is not a luxury, it's a requirement. And if the relationship feels like daily emotional paperwork, peace starts to look more attractive than romance. When people imagine a man checking out emotionally, they often picture a dramatic switch, like he wakes up one day and says, "I'm done," and walks away. That's not how it usually happens. It's slower than that, more subtle, more like erosion. First, he stops sharing small thoughts because they get turned into debates. Then he stops suggesting plans because they get criticized. Then he stops defending himself because it never changes anything. Then he stops looking forward to coming home because home doesn't feel like rest. And the saddest part is that he may still be doing everything right on paper. Working, providing, showing up, helping, staying faithful, being steady. But he's not fully there anymore. He's present physically, absent internally. His personality shrinks to whatever creates the least friction. His hobbies get labelled childish, selfish, or pointless, so he drops them. His friendships get treated as competition, so he reduces them. His downtime gets questioned, so he stops relaxing in ways that look unproductive. And then one day, the relationship ends, or he leaves, or she leaves, and something unexpected happens. He doesn't collapse. He breathes. Not because he never cared, but because the constant pressure stops. And that's when many men discover a truth that shocks even them. Some relationships don't feel like love. They feel like surveillance with benefits. When that ends, solitude can feel like oxygen. Picture an ordinary man. Not famous, not viral, not a stereotype. Late 30s or early 40s. Stable job. Not flashy, but responsible. The kind of man people call solid. For years, he tried to do things right. He worked long hours, handled responsibilities, tried to keep the relationship smooth. He adjusted and adapted. He learned which topics to avoid, which jokes might backfire, which moods required extra caution. Then the relationship ends, and everyone expects a predictable arc. At first, freedom, then loneliness, then regret, then chasing, then settling. But instead, he changes in a different way. He starts sleeping better. He returns to the gym. He cooks what he wants without commentary. He works on that project he kept postponing. He reconnects with friends and realizes his laughter comes back faster than he expected. His nervous system calms down. And that's the key detail people miss. It's not always the relationship ending that improves a man's life. It's the tension ending. That man isn't celebrating anyone's pain. He's not winning. He's not posting revenge content. He's just realizing he forgot what calm felt like. And after enough calm, a new standard forms. If a relationship doesn't add peace, it will eventually be compared to peace. And peace is hard to beat. There's a turning point many men describe, even if they use different words. It's the moment solitude stops feeling like a temporary waiting room and starts feeling like a home. It's when being alone becomes being free. Not free in a party all night way, free in a quiet morning way, free in a my choices belong to me way. He wakes up and realizes no one is upset at him this morning. No one is measuring his tone. No one is scoring his effort. No one is rewriting his intentions. He can live at his natural pace. And that creates a kind of confidence that isn't loud, it isn't performative, it isn't attention-seeking. It's grounded. It's the confidence of a man who no longer needs to negotiate his right to exist peacefully. And once a man reaches that point, dating becomes optional, not because he's broken, but because he's no longer hungry in the way the culture expected. He's not looking for someone to complete him. He's looking for someone who doesn't disturb what he already built. Many men are trained, by life, by work, by responsibility, to believe problems are meant to be solved. If something is broken, fix it. If something is hard, push through it. If someone is struggling, carry more. This mindset works in careers and projects. But relationships contain something different. Internal emotional worlds that you cannot engineer. And a lot of men learn the hard way that you can't build someone's contentment through effort alone. You can be supportive. You can be kind. You can be consistent. You can communicate. You can compromise. But you cannot permanently stabilize someone who is committed, consciously or unconsciously, to dissatisfaction. And when a man spends years trying to earn peace by doing everything right, burnout becomes inevitable. Eventually the lesson arrives. Love is not endless emotional labor. Devotion is not self-erasure. A healthy partnership has two adults managing their own emotional stability, not one adult trying to carry the mood of the entire household. Once men learn that boundary, stepping back isn't cruelty. It's self-preservation. Now let's talk about a force that quietly reshaped expectations for everyone: the highlight reel. Social media doesn't just show love, it sells a fantasy of love. Endless excitement, constant novelty, public validation, perfect timing, perfect aesthetic, perfect emotional performance. The problem is not that people share happy moments. The problem is that the comparison never stops. Real relationships are mostly unglamorous: laundry, traffic, stress, bills, bad moods, miscommunication, fatigue, routine, repair. But online, routine looks like failure. So some people begin expecting their partner to compete with an algorithm designed to maximize emotion, envy, and attention. That's a losing game. Men who step away from dating often report the same quiet relief. They no longer have to audition for a role in someone else's curated life. No more pressure to be a constant source of entertainment. No more feeling like love must look impressive to count. No more being measured against strangers' best moments. Solitude becomes real again, unfiltered and unranked. And that feels healthier than constantly being compared to a fantasy. There's another piece of this shift that rarely gets discussed honestly: the market dynamics of modern dating. Dating apps created unprecedented access, but access doesn't equal connection. When people are presented like profiles, the mind starts treating humans like options instead of relationships. The result is a strange emotional economy where people feel replaceable, effort feels risky, attention becomes transactional, and everyone assumes someone better is one swipe away. For many men, repeated experiences of being overlooked, or only noticed when they perform a certain way, teaches a practical lesson. The return on emotional investment is unreliable, so they stop investing. Not out of hatred, out of logic. They focus on what responds predictably to effort. Fitness improves when you train. Money grows when you budget and build skills. Projects finish when you work. Friendships deepen when they're reciprocal. But modern dating, especially app-driven dating, can feel like pouring energy into a slot machine. Eventually, men begin asking, "What if I use my time for a life that pays me back?" That's not surrender, that's strategy. A lot of men also feel trapped by contradictory expectations. Be confident, but never arrogant. Be strong, but always emotionally available. Be ambitious, but always present. Lead, but don't be controlling. Be sensitive, but don't be weak. Be decisive, but consult constantly. Be romantic, but don't be cheesy. Be calm, but don't be distant. When the standards shift depending on mood, context, or social media trends, a man learns that approval is unstable. And if approval is unstable, chasing it becomes exhausting. So he stops chasing. This is where many misunderstand the male retreat. From the outside, it can look like laziness, avoidance, or fear. But from inside, it often feels like opting out of a game where the rules change mid-play and you're punished either way. Withdrawal isn't always a tantrum. Sometimes it's the calm decision to stop volunteering for confusion. When men finally experience extended calm, something surprising happens. They don't want chaos anymore. And once you understand that, a lot of modern dating confusion makes sense. Because for many men, peace isn't just comfort, it's recovery. Recovery from always being on. Recovery from being misunderstood and then blamed for the misunderstanding. Recovery from constant emotional negotiation. Recovery from the pressure to prove worth. In solitude, the nervous system relaxes, thoughts become clearer, sleep improves, motivation returns, and the man starts building a life where his home feels like a sanctuary, his hobbies feel like joy again, his time feels like his money has direction, his friendships feel simple and respectful. Then someone comes along offering a relationship that includes stress, criticism, and constant tension, and he compares it to his current life. That comparison is brutal, not because he hates relationships, but because he finally understands the price of losing peace, and he's no longer willing to pay it. Now let's address the other side without blame. A lot of women are confused right now, and that confusion isn't always malicious. It's often a genuine mismatch between what people were taught and what they're now seeing. Many women grew up with a cultural expectation that men pursue, men chase, men return, men need partnership more than they admit. So when men stop chasing, it can feel like something broke. And then social media amplifies the confusion with simple explanations. They're intimidated, they're immature, they're scared of commitment, they only want casual. Sometimes those explanations fit, but not always. Sometimes the truth is less dramatic. Some men aren't running from women, they're running towards stability. They're not rejecting love as a concept, they're rejecting relationships that feel like unpaid emotional overtime. And that's why the question, where did the good men go, is tricky. Many of them didn't go anywhere. They went home, they went to the gym, they went back to school, they went back to their businesses, they went back to peace, quietly. If this shift continues, and it likely will, relationships won't disappear, but they may become fewer and more intentional. Because the new baseline is changing. A growing number of men are no longer entering relationships to escape loneliness. They're entering relationships only when the connection genuinely enhances an already stable life. That means mutual respect matters more than chemistry alone. Emotional regulation becomes attractive, not optional. Peace becomes a shared goal. Boundaries become normal. Reciprocity becomes the standard. This also means performative romance will matter less. People who build relationships around appearances, posting, competing, proving, flexing, will struggle. Because a man who has peace won't trade it for a highlight reel relationship that feels tense in private. The relationships that thrive will be quieter, steadier, and more grounded. Not perfect, but livable. If you want a modern relationship to work, on either side, the new deal is surprisingly straightforward. Don't make love feel like a courtroom. Don't make home feel like a performance review. Don't treat peace like something someone must earn. Because the moment peace becomes conditional, people start asking whether the relationship is worth it. The new standard isn't never argue, it's repair without disrespect. It's communicate without constant punishment. It's be a teammate, not a critic. Men aren't asking for perfection, they're asking for a relationship that feels like partnership instead of pressure. And women, many women, are asking for the same thing too, even if it shows up differently. This shift can be good news if both sides take it seriously, because it pushes everyone toward healthier dynamics. Less entitlement, more accountability, less performance, more sincerity, less chaos, more trust. Here's the core truth behind everything we've talked about. Solitude has changed meaning. It used to be framed as failure, as a sign you couldn't win love, as proof something was wrong with you. But now, for many men, solitude is not a void. It's a reset button, a sanctuary, a standard. And once peace becomes your baseline, you stop bargaining with chaos. That doesn't mean love is dead. It means love has competition now. Not competition from other people, competition from a man's own calm life. So if someone wants a place in that life, the relationship must actually add something real: respect, warmth, stability, shared effort, and emotional safety. Because the age of "you should be grateful someone chose you" is fading. The new era is about two whole people choosing each other without losing themselves. Now I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Have you ever experienced that moment where being alone felt better than being with someone? Not because you hate relationships, but because the relationship costs too much peace. And if you're in a relationship right now, what does peace look like in your home? Do you feel like teammates, or like you're constantly defending your existence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Keep it respectful, keep it real. Because the more we talk about this shift without turning it into a gender war, the more likely people are to build relationships that actually work.